Okay. Well, we have two more folks who have some really interesting insights on this work. And, just in terms of today and the end of the day, I know you've been sticking around for a while. I appreciate everyone. I hope this is bringing you good things. I'll just make you a promise now that my wrap up will be very short at the end. So we're going to use the time that we have to focus on Cindy and Heather as they share some insights with us uh, through the end of the day. So Cindy, I think you have your screen share. Fantastic. And as you're pulling that up, I'll just say that Cindy Murphy serves as Staff Services Manager in the Outreach and Grants Unit of California OSPR, um, and has had a lot of different roles over the years. And I encourage you to look at her bio to understand kind of what her background is and where she's coming to this with. Um, Cindy, this is something that we've heard. Well, folks were excited to reach out to you and hear more about this work. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm just going to do a mic check and someone give me a heads up or a thumbs up if my mic is loud enough for you to hear me.
Yep, loud and clear. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Meg. First, I want to thank, BC State's Oil Spill Task Force for the committee for allowing me to share what we're doing as far as tribal engagement and outreach here in California. It's been some time since I presented in front of BC State, so probably back in 2003. So that probably dates me a little bit. I also want to just mention a few years ago that OSPR created my position, a full-time position as tribal coordinator. And prior to that, some of my colleagues served as a tribal coordinator during spill. So that was their ICS position. And I really want to acknowledge the work that they did before me. I am full of gratitude for the work. They've put, the building blocks in place for me to kind of, start to expand our program as far as tribal engagement and outreach and helping us connect with California's Native American tribes and indigenous peoples, and ensuring, their perspectives are included in our oil spill planning and response efforts. So with that, I will start with just, what I will cover in this presentation, just, enhancing our pre-planning in California. I think we can all agree as first responders that it's all in the pre-planning. I know some of my colleagues, like when you walk into a command post, just seeing friendly faces, knowing who we are, and having that opportunity to work on, our contingency plans, our geographic response plans, and engaging tribes, if they want to. And some of that is some challenges, which I'll talk a little bit about, and how we've kind of turned those into some opportunities. And then talk about in more in depth to our tribal engagement and outreach during non-spills. What I'm not going to cover today, and I feel like everyone is very well versed in Section 106 of the National Historic Properties um, and the programmatic agreement, the 97 programmatic agreement. That's really the federal requirement where the either Coast Guard or EPA, Coast Guard on the coast, has the requirement to consult with federally recognized tribes if the tribe wishes to do so. Same for EPA, and then it brings in the historic property specialist. And then here in California, we also have our executive orders that Governor Brown and Newsom developed, where state agencies are encouraged to consult with tribes on projects. Keeping those laws in mind. But just to mention them, just so you know that I will not be covering those today. When it comes to pre-planning for oil spills, engaging tribes and other cultural and historic professionals early is absolutely critical. And finding various ways of communicating, right? California presents a very unique challenge. Our state is huge. We have over 1,100 miles of coastline and more than 190,000 miles of inland waterways. So there's a lot of ground to cover. Traditionally, pre-planning here in California, we've really focused mostly on natural resources at risk, Cultural resources haven't always received the same attention in area contingency plans or our geographic response plans, but that's changing. We're reaching out to tribes and inviting, for their input. Several tribes have been attending the area committee up north, which covers Del Norte, Humboldt, and Mendocino counties for years, and their contributions to that area contingency plan has been invaluable and really helping us make these plans more inclusive. More recently, we have a GRP for the Klamath River. We've had some of the local tribes, provide a great deal of input. But in talking with the tribes, it was more or less like, we want to participate, more if there was some funding mechanism. And prior to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, just about, we didn't have a funding mechanism to support the tribes in their review of our plans, their participation. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides. Some of their challenges is that, many responders have limited knowledge about protecting historical and cultural resources. To address this, we've really been inviting tribes to participate in drills and exercises. These activities, have given tribes the opportunity to meet first responders, industries, start to build that trust, start having that conversation, sharing their expertise in protecting these resources. I do want to mention we, during responses, we do reach out to our state agencies, Native American Heritage Commission and the California Historic Resource Information Center, and we do request a quick presence absence determination, and that is requesting these state agencies to look at their sacred lands files, their databases to see if there are any cultural historic resources that are either present or absent in the spillway area. And we typically, get this information Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And if there is presence, then NAHC will provide the name of the tribe, contact information of who provided that resource. And so I can immediately start reaching out to that particular tribe. If it's absence, NAHC provides a list. It's set up by county. So they'll send me wherever the spill incident is, whatever county it is, I'll get a list of those local tribes in that particular area so I can start that outreach. Being in this position for about 2.5 years, I have learned, anything on the coast, wherever there's a waterway, I'm probably going to go ahead and start reaching out to those tribes and not always waiting for a PA or a presence absence determination. And that's an internal term that we use here at OSPR, a quick presence absence. And I would just want to that was Dr. Kathleen Jennings that came up with that name to be able to, find out quickly if there are presence or absence of those cultural resources. So that wasn't something I came up with. So I wanted to give her kudos for that. Some of the other things, we're relatively, few historic and cultural resource professionals and tribal representatives, many of whom already have had very heavy workloads. And so, which happened in a more recent spill down in Orange County, P00547, the local tribe was not able to come in and fill the role of the cultural resource monitor. So we ended up having to go out to a private monitoring company. It's just we had ties with that private company. We had worked with those monitors during the Refugio incident in 2015. And they then created a cultural monitoring company, and that just so happened those were their ancestral lands, so they were able to come in and help serve as cultural monitors for that particular response. One of the things that some of the tribes mentioned that they don't have HAZWOPers, so there's definitely a lag in plugging in the tribes to serve as cultural resource specialists or monitors. So I'll talk a little bit in the next couple slides about our new grant program. And the awesome thing is tribes are expanding their programs. Their programs are expanding in areas like climate incentives and expanding their environmental programs. So which is great to see here in California. I'll start with the preparedness grant for California Native American tribes. It is a $10,000 grant. We're looking to potentially increase that funding up to 15 if needed. This grant program started about 2020 in 2022, and what it includes is 24-hour HAZWOPER training, the refresher. If they want to upgrade to 40-hour, they can take the 16 online or through another vendor. It also funds them to attend area committee meetings, be reviewing GRPs, like we just recently had the Klamath River, the Yurok tribe reviewed that document, provided some great input, to attend some of our oil spill related trainings, to attend drills and exercises. Recently we had a tribe down in San Francisco attend the Phillips 66 exercise. It gives us an opportunity to introduce the tribes to industry, to first responders, our contractors, other state agencies, and then get introduced to the environmental unit. So if they did have a spill, on their tribal lands or their ancestral lands, at least we're starting this conversation, and they don't walk into a command post and go, "Wow, this is overwhelming." So really starting to, invite tribes to attend industry-led drills here in California, and also to attend any related trainings that we offer, environmental response to oil spills. We also offer continuing challenge, any types. We now offer a tribal engagement workshop, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides. But this grant, I think the last count I had, we have trained up over about 130 tribal members and HAZWOPers. So I see this even taking off even more for next fiscal year. Just some of the HAZWOPer trainings that we have done over the last couple months, just sharing some photos here. Drills and exercises, we've had some good success with that, inviting the tribes to attend the exercises. This really gives us an opportunity to share sort of where they would plug in the environmental unit and operations, serving tribal monitors, or they can serve, as an observer on, our SCAT teams. And so just starting to build those relationships, and, through building those relationships, we're also building trust. And that's great to, to have here in California. I'm going to say thank you to Department of Ecology and the state of Washington. They gave us this idea way back when. I think they may have implemented their response equipment grant program in maybe 2005. I can't remember. We implemented ours in 07, 08, soon after the Costco Busan, for those that have been around for a little while. So this grant we've been providing since then. It's a grant of up to $45,000. It's a cargo trailer and all the equipment that you would need, except the people and the boats to deploy. So it's a containment boom, sorbent material, anchors, buoys, underflow dam, which is a water gate if need be. So this grant has been ongoing. Thus far, we've issued or awarded, and tribes have received. There's 8 tribes that have received the trailer, and we have 3 more in the works for this fiscal year. So we're excited about that. The grant also includes delivery of the trailer and then a full day of training and equipment familiarization. More recently, in 2017, we partnered with the Coast Guard, and we started offering refresher grants of up to $10,000. The Coast Guard has partnered with us to offer refresher boom training. So we have done many of those over the last several years since 2017. Many of the grantees mentioned that some of their resources have been depleted, and so now we can offer a replenish grant if funds are available. So that's been going pretty well as well. More recently, we were just up at the Klamath. That's in the middle picture there. That is the Yurok tribe. Shingle Springs Band of Miwok just received their response equipment trailer. That's the Sacramento River. And then Morongo tribe received theirs quite some time ago, but we did a refresher boom training with their tribal members. We were just up at Lake County with some of the tribes up there, and then the Trinidad Rancheria. So the program has really taken off. And again, I just thank Department of Ecology. They let me borrow some of their ideas on their grant program, and so we pretty much mirrored what Department of Ecology. So thank you to the state of Washington for sharing those resources with California. Recently, we started in asking tribes if they would like to attend some of our sensitive site strategy evaluations. I think I mentioned we have over, I think, 600 environmentally sensitive sites on the coast of California. And with those sites that have been identified, we have strategies that we go out and we test on a regular basis to make sure the strategy still works for that particular sensitive site. And so now we're inviting the tribes, the local tribes in that particular area where triple SEP is going to take place. And, this gives us another opportunity to talk to the tribes about, how we go about protecting these sites and what concerns they might have. Just really starting to build that conversation. And I'm finding too, trying to manage those expectations is another big key. So talking through those has been very beneficial to us mostly. More recently, I collaborated with the Coast Guard. We put on a tribal engagement during oil spills workshop. We hosted our first one in May of this year, and we were up north in Humboldt County. And the workshop included, just pollution laws. We talked a little bit about funding. We talked about the ICS system, kind of where, tribes typically would fit in. If they have other ideas of other positions they may fit into. That was just a really good conversation with the local tribes that attended. Talked about the area contingency plan, GRPs, of course, Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act and the 97 PA. Talked a lot about the environmental unit because that's typically where, a lot of the tribal members will serve, and then in operations under SCAT. I think one of the best things was the panel discussion where we had tribal members, we had a federal on-scene coordinator, we had an environmental unit leader, tribal coordinator, just talking through things and how we would respond and how we would go about collaborating with each other. So that was a really a great workshop, and we're hoping to have a couple more on the calendar in 2026. Here's just a couple pictures of that workshop. We had Trinidad Rancheria, the Yurok tribe, and the Wiyot tribe. So good participation. We also, when I first started the position, we didn't really have resources that I could share with tribes. And so we created the How in California Native American Tribes Engaged During Spill Response. Sounds a little familiar with the region. I think it was the RRT3 that shared some of their resources, their tribal resources with us. So, we have to put the California flair on it. So we did that by adding some additional information, where they can find response plans, the IMH, the Incident Management Handbook from Coast Guard and US EPA, funding. That's always, kind of a big question, how do tribes get funded to respond? And so some of this information is in this brochure, and then we have a flyer that's also located on our website. And then, of course, our grant information too, where you can find it here. So this is our webpage. It's our grants and outreach page, and there's a QR code. And on here, you'll see the Native American Preparedness Grant. We do have the Tribal Engagement During Oil Spill Response flyer located there. If you're interested. Just some of the resources. We have some great resources. CDFW Tribal Affairs program has some great tools. I'm often looking in there, just language, how to sort of like how to introduce yourself to tribal council members, things to consider. So these have been great resources for me in this new position. The California Natural Resource Agency Tribal Affairs Department, they've been doing a lot of webinars talking about consultation and best practices. So that's been very helpful in outreaching with tribes. Then, of course, I mentioned already Native American Heritage Commission, and then they have their digital atlas of California Native American tribes. So I do refer to that occasionally when my contact list is not giving me the information I need. So I do sometimes go to the atlas. I also want to mention CDFW has a tribal liaison for the department. Her name is Sarah Fonseca. CDFW has 7 regions within California, and each region has a tribal coordinator. And so we meet monthly and we talk about, some of best practices, working with tribes, some lessons learned, some of the things that are going on throughout the different regions. So if we had a spill, let's say in region 2, I can, work with the tribal coordinator. They may have a better contact list, or they may have, better integration with the tribes in that region. So this has been, very helpful to me as well. I also just want to mention it is National Native American Heritage Month, the month of November. So I felt like, how do I, talk about tribal engagement and outreach without mentioning this is the national, November is the National Native American Heritage Month. So, and that is it for me. And there's my contact information. If you have any questions, more than happy to address those.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Appreciate your knowledge on this subject, and I'm seeing from attendees appreciation as well. Kudos.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, well.